Somebody watched my last video and left a comment. They said the man I showed looked too African. And then they said, stop stealing other people's culture. All right, let's answer that properly. No shouting, because I don't need to shout. I brought the dates. Here's what a comment like that is really saying. It's telling you, this isn't yours. You don't belong here. You're a guest in this history. Be quiet and sit down. A lot of us have felt that our whole lives, told our story starts on a slave ship, told everything before that belongs to somebody else. So today I'm not going to argue about the way people looked. I'm going to do something better. I'm going to show you when Egypt was built and when every single one of these other people showed up. And you're going to see it with your own eyes. Quick thing before we start. If you want the rest of this series, subscribe and tap like. That's what puts it in front of the next person who needs to see it. And send it to one person who's been told they don't belong in their own story. That's how we find each other. Let me put it simple. Say somebody knocks on your door and says your house isn't yours. What's the first thing you'd ask? When was the house built? And when did you get here? So let's do that with Egypt. Egypt became one kingdom around 5,000 years ago. The Great Pyramid went up about 4,500 years ago. Hold that number. 4,500 years. That pyramid was built and finished and already old before almost everyone else in this story was even close. Now watch who shows up and when. The Greeks, the ones everybody credits. The first Greeks came to live in Egypt about 2,600 years ago. By then, the Great Pyramid was already nearly 2,000 years old. Then Alexander marched in and took over. The pyramid was more than 2,000 years old that day. The Romans came next, a little after that. Then the Arabs arrived, about 1,400 years ago. By then, the pyramid had been standing for over 3,000 years. Then, the Turks. Now you might have heard they came under a different name first. You're right, there was a group called the Mamluks, soldiers who came from the Turkish lands and nearby and ended up ruling Egypt about 700 years ago. Then the Ottoman Turks took over after them, about 500 years ago, lined them all up. Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Turks, every one of them walked up to a house that was already ancient, and you do not build the house you find already standing. Now here's the group nobody wants to talk about, because it settles the whole thing. About 2,700 years ago, a line of kings came up the Nile from the south, from Kush. That's modern-day Sudan, deep in Africa, far from the coast, far from Europe, the heart of the continent. And they didn't visit Egypt. They ruled it, all of it, the whole country. We call them the 25th dynasty, the Black Pharaohs, kings with names like Pie and Taharka. Their faces are carved on the monuments. You can go and look. Sit with that. Africans came up from the heart of the continent and sat on the throne of Egypt as pharaohs, hundreds of years before any European ruled a single street of it. So when somebody asks, was Egypt even African? Africans ran the place. On the record. In stone. The question isn't whether we belong in Egypt's story. The question is who taught you to doubt it? And that's the real question. So let's answer it. For most of history, nobody argued about this. The old world just knew Egypt was African and old. The Greeks said it. We showed you that in episode 1. The doubt is new. It's only about 200 years old. And look at when it shows up. The 1700s, the 1800s, the exact years Europe was shipping African people across the sea in chains. Think about what a business like that needs. It needs a story where Africa never built anything, where Africa never thought anything, never ruled anything, Because if Africa built the oldest wonder in the world, then the people in those chains are somebody. And that ruins the whole story. So the story got rewritten. Right about then, Egypt got quietly lifted out of Africa and set down somewhere else. Not because new proof turned up, because a cruel business needed it to be true. I'm telling you that as a reason, not as a fact I can weigh. I can't measure what was in their hearts, but I can read a calendar. And the timing tells its own story. Now the part I owe you every time. I am not telling you every Egyptian looked exactly like me. They didn't. Egypt sat on a long river for thousands of years. People married across borders. The south was darker. The north was more mixed. That's just true. I'm not going to swap one lie for another one. And I'm not going to hand you a slogan and pretend it's science. Some people wave one DNA study around like it ends the fight. It doesn't. That study looked at a few bodies from one small corner from late in the story. A few people are not a whole country across 3,000 years. Anybody who tells you it's simple is selling you something. Here's the part that is simple, the part nobody can move. Egypt is in Africa. It was built by a people of the Nile. It was old before any Greek, Roman, Arab, or Turk ruled it, and Africans from the deep south ruled it as kings. Everything else is detail. That right there is bedrock. So here's what to do with all this. Next time somebody tells you Egypt wasn't yours, you don't have to argue. You don't have to raise your voice. Just ask them one thing. When was the pyramid built? And when did your people arrive? Then let them do the subtraction. Because you were never a guest here, kin. You were never standing outside somebody else's history with your face pressed against the glass. You were home the whole time. Somebody just moved the walls of the house while you weren't looking. Now you can see them for what they are. That's episode 3. 3 episodes now. What was taken, how, and the lie they built to cover it. If you've watched all 3, you already hold something most people are never handed. Your own history, with the receipts. So here's the one thing to take with you. The pyramid. About 4,500 years old. The people who say it wasn't ours showed up far later. Do the subtraction. Put the number in the comments. And the next time somebody tells you you don't belong in this story, you won't need to raise your voice. You'll just ask them one date. Walk the way with us. Subscribe. Maat is the measure.